many of you know that our airplane, Sky King, we found out thanks to David Elliott. I'd like for David to stand. David, where are you out there? David Elliott. David Elliott's father flew in the 53rd Troop Carrier Squadron, Billy Elliott. So Billy Elliott, along with Gerald Parker and Don King, hence the name Sky King, they all flew in the 53rd Troop Carrier Squadrons and were really good friends. David is a historian. He called me one day and he said, "Hey, can you verify the serial number on your airplane, military?" And so I went up in the cockpit with my cell phone. Never talked to David before. We looked at it. He said, "Hey, your airplane flew D-Day." I said, "Wow, I didn't even know it left the United States. Didn't have a clue." And that developed into a relationship. We found that the pilot of the airplane was Don King, and with us today we have Don's two sons, Kevin and Ken King. Would you please stand? Kevin and Ken King, the sons of the pilot that flew these combat missions. Thank you so much. And then as it goes on, we found out that we found the map. It flew the southern route. It flew Husky 1 and 2, which was in North Africa and Sicily. It went on to fly Avalanche in Italy. It dropped the 507th on D-Day, and 3 missions in Market Garden and Varsity. So it's quite a unique airplane, and we kind of hooked the families together with that airplane. And Gerald is just one of the keys to it. He actually flew this airplane on some supply missions during North Africa with Don King as co-pilot. So with that, I'm going to quit talking and I'm going to turn it over to Gerald Parker.
First of all, I'd like to thank all the volunteers. Hasn't this been a wonderful experience? It certainly has been for me. In the last few days, I've been up in a T6, a P-51, a C-47, a C-60, and a B-17. I never thought I'd live that long. Also, I want to thank the owners and the participants with them working on their aircraft for all the work they do to get these airplanes so they can fly and keep flying. It's amazing how old they are, because I'm that old too. The 53rd Troop Carrier Squadron left Polk Field in May 1943 with 13 airplanes, and Scott's was one of those 13, and went to North Africa by way of South America, Ascension Island, and that was a little tricky, and then up to Dakar, Marrakesh. And after getting our ground echelon to join up with us, we moved to the desert south of Tunis, about 125 miles out into the desert, and life was not very good there. But from there we were able to make the invasion of Sicily happen. And as many of you know, first night everything went quite well. But the second night, as we were flying out after our drop, fortunately, the American and British Navy shot at one of our aircraft. I believe they shot down 35, and they put up a real barrage. It was just very difficult to go through without getting hit. So Scott's plane took several hits, and in fact Don's parachute was set on fire with one of the tracers that came in where he was sitting. After Sicily, we dropped in Italy at Salerno. The original plan was to fly to Rome and land with the paratroopers inside the airplane, and the Italians were going to change sides and fight with our troops. And you know how sure you could be of something like that happening. So that was eventually scrubbed because they found out there were more reinforcements of the Germans in that area. And instead we invaded down south of Naples at Salerno. That mission was very simply planned one day, and we flew the same day that we planned the mission, and it was probably the best one we had. We didn't have time to mess it up. Then we moved up to England, and at that time, after that, several new groups came from the States, so that we had a tremendous number of C-47s up there. I'm not sure how many groups there were. Each group ready to fly 72 airplanes, so we could really carry a lot of paratroopers. So our next mission was D-Day in France, and after that we went to to Market Garden in Holland, and there we flew in the daylight for the first time. And those of us who had been on the previous missions didn't really like the idea of flying in daylight. It's you can see the firepower coming up. You could smell it when it explodes, and you could feel it, and you could hear it. And we just didn't like that. And our route was about 100 miles over enemy territory. And the first day it was okay because it was a surprise. But the second day we flew the same route. We were towing gliders, so we're going about 100 miles an hour at 2,200 feet. And you give everybody a lot of time to take a shot at you. So we had several airplanes get shot up, but only 3 shot down out of our 20 in our squadron that flew that mission. The last day was a resupply mission. Then we could fly as low as we wanted, which was treetop level. And I don't believe we lost any aircraft that last day. Going back to D-Day, it was about a 3-hour flight from our base to the drop area. And of course that was done at night. And we always waited for a moonlight night to make it easier for us to see what we were doing and make it easier for the paratroopers to find out where they were when they got on the ground. I have to admit we didn't always hit the drop zone right on the head. And they would be the first one to tell you. When we got to Cherbourg Peninsula, the ceiling was about 250 feet. And so you can imagine running 72 airplanes into an area below 250 feet at night, and optimum drop altitude was 600 feet. So when we got close to what we thought was the drop zone, we started climbing up into the clouds to drop, and then separated and all went home by ourselves. I could tell you a little bit about living in the desert. We didn't have electricity, so we didn't have refrigeration, and we didn't have fresh food. I went from about 155 down to about 95 pounds. Part of that was due to dysentery, and part of it was due to getting airsick whenever I flew, and the rest was due to poor food and limited food. I don't really have anything else I want to say right now, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes.
Great question, Kevin. You got to really speak up here.
How many planes did you get off the ground? How long did it take?
How many
Well,
did you take off, and how long?
Our best record, we worked on it diligently, so we did it several times, and our best record was 4 minutes and 26 seconds to get 72 airplanes off at night. And I'd say we always got them off in less than 5 minutes. We formed our formation very simply. The lead aircraft flew out about 6 minutes after takeoff and made a slow turn, 180 degrees, and then came back over the field, and when he crossed the field, we were formed. Bases around us, we had 4 bases around the small community of Grantham, and we laid out areas where you could take off and form and not interfere with each other. And ours was just a zip, and there some of them went all over the place. And it's a good thing we did that. Now, when we moved to England, there's so many airplanes in the air, we always flew in formation. Instead of having individual airplanes all over the sky, we had formations all over the sky, and they felt it was a safer operation.
Butter at your dinner table in North Africa? Butter.
Oh, okay. We had green beans, canned green beans every meal. Breakfast, noon, and night. And to make them halfway respectable, they put a huge glob of butter in them. The butter came in a gallon can, like so, and it was made by Standard Oil Company. It was the right color, but it melted at about 165 degrees. And so you take your beans back to your spot where you're going to stand and eat them. And as the butter started to solidify, well, you take the first glob of that and it would burn your mouth. So you push the rest of it off the side.
Did you ever have to make a downhill landing?
Yeah, I didn't have to, I guess, but I picked the wrong spot. When we were moving from near Oran to Kairouan, which was south of Tunis, it was about a 4-hour flight, and of course we were loaded on the way over, so we would use a little more than half our fuel and hope we had enough to get back. This particular day, we apparently had downdrafts, and flying formation, you do use a little extra fuel. And 2 of us out of the 6 airplanes decided we didn't have enough fuel to get back home, so we headed for Algiers. And the other 4 had plenty of fuel, they said, and I think one of them actually made it. But I was near Constantine, and it was getting dark, starting to rain, and Billy Mitchell's B-25 base was there. I had seen it a couple times flying over on this move, and so I looked up on the map, found where it was, and flew to that location, and there wasn't any air base there. Our maps were very poor and no nav aids, so it was all dead reckoning. And so I picked out a spot to set it down, and it happened the slope was just about equal to my descent. And in descending down this mountainside, and first thing we hit was a 2-foot boulder with the right wheel, and it blew the tire and broke the wheel. And the strut immediately grabbed the ground and turned us sideways, and so we went down the hillside sideways and didn't flip over. We sat there for 3 days. We were able to run an engine to keep our batteries up, and the third night, our radio operator contacted an airplane flying overhead, told them what we needed and where we were and where our base was. And the next day, an airplane came in with the equipment, and there's the squadron commander. I figured my flying days are really over. I was the second airplane he had heard from out of the 6, so he was so happy to see us with an airplane that would still fly. We did have a little excitement getting out of there after walking on down the hillside and getting the big rocks out of the way. We locked the brakes and put on full power with half flaps, released the brakes, and the new one didn't release, so it turned 90 degrees and we went and charged it off to the side. And we got it about 50 miles an hour when we came to the edge, and we went off, and it was about a 2,000 foot drop, so we had plenty of space to pick up the rest of our airspeed. But I don't recommend it for a regular.
What was that again?
Billy Elliot swimming in the Mediterranean.
Oh, okay. It was time to slow time my airplane that I was co-pilot on at the time down in Sicily. And I was in the middle of a poker game, so I asked for a volunteer to take my place, and his dad volunteered. And they took off, and the field was about 700 feet above sea level, so just made a turnout toward the Mediterranean, which was only 5 miles. And before they got there, they lost an engine, and it didn't just quit, it came off. they really lost it. And they said that made the airplane buffet quite a bit, and so they put it into the Mediterranean, so he got the goldfish instead of me. But I did get the Caterpillar when I was working for the FAA. I was flying a T-33 that had a flame out at flight level 370, and we glided down for 14 and a half minutes. I was fine till it was time to tell the controller that Mayday. As soon as I said Mayday, I got shook up. I was really calm up till then. But we decided to get out at 10,000, which was 3,000 feet above the ground. This was in Wyoming. And the wind blows normally at about 35 or 40, and it was a normal wind, so it didn't come down straight. And it looked like trees down below, but it turned out it was sagebrush, which was a little safer. It was in December, so there was a little snow on the ground. And I slid for about half a mile. And there was one, I went back out to pick up what clothes I could get out of the airplane. Boy, that light is bright. Hey, if I took
Look that way.
Look towards the camera. You'll be all right.
First thing that happened was they had told me don't worry about the seat, you can't hold on to it. Well, that was wrong. You can hold it all the way to the ground, and your chute won't open because it's inside the seat. So I was tumbling, and I finally realized I had the rings in my hand. I released the seat, and
Does that help a little bit?
yeah. And the chute opened immediately because the ripcord was attached to the seat, and so I still had about 1,000 feet left. And I looked up, and the first 3 sections were ripped out of the chute because I was at the end of a crack the whip when tumbling, and then it opened. And so I was coming down backwards, and I decided I should turn around. So I did something wrong and lost about 500 feet. So finally decided just to go in that way. So I hit heels, butt, and helmet, and it knocked me out. When I came to, I was sliding along in the snow at about 40 miles an hour. And when I went back in the afternoon, I saw where there was a spot where I got over a low area that was probably 80 feet across. And you can see where I hit here and then whacked the side there and went on my way. That's when I was still out, so I didn't realize it.